Problem 14, it says to graph the equation and label all key features, and we've got the equation y equals -3 times the quantity x minus 2 squared. I do notice that this is a quadratic equation, so that we are going to be getting a parabola, or we're going to get a shape that looks like one of these two after we are done graphing it. So the first thing I know that I need to do is identify the vertex, and it is given in vertex form, so I do not need to use opposite b over 2a. I can just pull the vertex out. The one thing that I notice it doesn't have is plus anything, so I'm just going to put plus 0. So my vertex is going to be the opposite of the inside, which will be 2, and then the outside is just 0. So my vertex is at 2, 0, and then from here to get to other points I generally subtract 2 and add 2. And then if I plug 0 in exactly how it looks on here, I'd use my calculator and just put 0 in place of the x, I'm going to get -12. And then if I plug 4 in place of the x, I'm also going to get -12. So when I go to graph this, I'm going to go to 0, -12 and put a point. And then I'm going to go to 2, 0 and put a point. And then I'm going to go to 4, -12 and put a point. And then I'm going to try to nicely, smoothly connect that into a parabola. Notice it's not a V at all, it's hopefully a nice smooth curve. All right, the next thing it asks for is the A of x, which is the axis of symmetry, which is the line that cuts that parabola in half, which would be the line x equals 2. And then it asks for the x-intercepts. Well, remember the x-intercepts is just where does that parabola touch the x-axis. This is the x-axis, so this is where it touches right here, and that is at x equals 2. Okay, number 15, it says to graph the equation and label all key features once again. Y equals 2x squared plus 4x minus 6. Again, it's quadratic because the power is 2, so we know it's going to be a parabola again. So I'm going to this time fish out my vertex, which I'm going to do by using opposite b over 2a. My a is going to be 2, my b is going to be 4, so the opposite of 4 is -4 over 2 times a. 2 times 2 is 4. -4 divided by 4 is -1. So the x value of my vertex is -1. And then I'm just going to subtract 2 and add 2. And now I'm going to actually plug these in to this problem. Please remember on your calculator when you get to the x, please put the x in parentheses to make sure you get the right answer. So if I'm going to start with the vertex, I'm going to plug -1 in there. And let's see what I will get. I believe I'm going to get -8. Right, and then if I plug in -3, I believe I get 0, and if I plug in 1, I should also get 0. So hopefully I am correct on those. -3, 0, -1, -8, and then 1, 0. Okay, so it's going to look like a parabola very nicely, whoop, like that. And then that should be what it looks like. The vertex we found was at -1, -8. The axis of symmetry is the line that cuts the parabola in half, which is going to be x equals -1. And then my x-intercepts, where am I touching the x-axis? I'm touching at these two places. I'm touching at x equals -3, and I'm touching at x equals 1. Okay, problem 16 says, which quadratic equation, when graphed, has x-intercepts of 2 and -1? Well, this one we should be familiar with when solving by graphing. When we solve by graphing, so not graphing, factoring, notice these are the factored answers. Whenever we have a factored answer, we always take the opposite. So this one would have intercepts at x equals -2 and x equals -1. My second option would have intercepts at x equals -2 and x equals +1. The third one would have intercepts at x equals +2 and x equals -1, and then the last choice would have intercepts at x equals 2 and x equals +1. So if I look at which one has intercepts of 2 and 1, it was definitely choice D. All right, 17. How would the graph of the equation y equals -x squared plus 7 be different from the graph of the basic quadratic function x squared? Okay, so for this one, notice y equals x squared would be a parabola that looks like this. It's just the parent function. Okay, and then if we found the new vertex, this is a +7, and what that's going to do, it's going to move the vertex up 7 spots. So my new equation is going to look like that. Okay, if you are not sure how I got that, I just noticed it's a +7, so it's going to go up 7. But if I was not sure of that, I could actually find the vertex for each of them and notice that the vertex moved 7 spaces.